Columbus is also in great pain. The arthritis he suffered on his first voyage has returned to plague him again. The illness spreads all around his body and begins to affect his state of mind.
I was on the point of leaving everything, to escape, if possible, with my life.
But then, without warning, over 200 days after the voyage began, Columbus does something extraordinary.
Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros los pecadores.
To his crew's amazement, Columbus orders his ships to be turned around. After years of deep conviction, he finally decides to give up the very reason that brought him this far. He abandons the search for the westward passage.
Columbus gave up the search for the westward passage because it soon became clear that he wasn't going to find it. The Indians that he had seen in eastern Panama began to look an awful lot like the Indians he had seen along the coast of Venezuela. Furthermore, those Indians had told him that there was no water passage.
Columbus changes his goal from exploration and the finding of the westward passage to exploitation by searching for gold to plunder. He sails along the coast to Veragua in what is now Panama. Indians have told him that it is awash with gold. Columbus's brother Bartolome immediately sets out on a mission into the mountains. If they can find gold, Columbus will at least have something to redeem himself with before the monarchs of Spain. And Columbus couldn't have aimed for a better place. Gold, copper, and silver grains flowed down Veragua's hills and rushed through its rivers and streams. At first, things go well. Columbus befriends the local Guayami Indians.
The early Spanish explorers give us a lot of detail about the Indian communities living along the coast of Panama. They were clearly quite sophisticated communities who traded in gold, they had chieftains, they probably had quite complicated state-like organizations. They weren't building pyramids or cities like the Maya and so forth, but nonetheless they were really quite sophisticated societies.
Throughout his travels, Columbus has established trading relations with the Indians he meets. He exchanges worthless items such as broken terracotta and glass beads for gold and pearls. At first, the Guayami are happy to share their wealth, but Columbus misinterprets this hospitality as a sign that the Indians will be easy to subdue. He wants more than simple trade. Columbus wants to exploit their wealth, colonize their land, and convert them to Christianity. Even though Columbus was born in a time when the conversion of native peoples to Christianity was an expected duty, his extreme religious fanaticism set him apart from other explorers.
Columbus was a man who was almost, I guess today you might call him holier than thou. He tended to wear his religion on his sleeve. He tended to pray a lot. He tended to ask his men, or indeed require his men, to pray a lot. And by the end of his life, he had become even more devoutly religious, if possible.
But Columbus fails to convert the Guayami people to Christianity. The Indians have realized that the Spaniards aren't intending a short-term stay. And their suspicions are confirmed when, 4 months after he landed in Veragua, Columbus orders his men to push inland and search for yet more gold. His brother Bartolome has been instructed to form a colony with 80 men. But as they press inland, Columbus's clerk Diego Mendez comes across a chilling warning. he spies Indians hidden in the jungle. They are preparing for war.
The Indians in Panama were certainly more warlike than the Indians that Columbus had encountered in Hispaniola. They were more suspicious of the Spanish, and when they became suspicious, they were more capable of engaging in military attacks against them than anything Columbus had found in Hispaniola.
War is about to break out. "11 months after he first set out from Spain, Columbus prepares his ships for departure off the coast of Veragua, modern-day Panama. One is leaking so badly that it has been abandoned. On board the Capitana, Columbus plans his route home. But he also wants to build a mighty colony to inspire awe in the courts of Spain. He has left 80 men ashore under the command of his brother Bartolome and his clerk Diego Mendez. The settlement will be named Belém, Spanish for Bethlehem. But the would-be settlers are 5,000 miles from home. They are vulnerable to the inhospitable climate, disease, and hunger. And the native people have turned against them. On April 6th, when it looks as if the main fleet is leaving, they launch their assault. But the Spanish manage to start to turn the tables, taking the fight to the enemy. Although they are outnumbered at least 10 to 1, they have one great advantage: firearms.
The Spanish had guns like this, the arquebus. It was a great improvement on earlier handguns. Gunpowder had been around for 160 years before Columbus's last voyage, and the early handguns had a very short barrel on a wooden stock, but they had to be detonated by a separate match. It was a two-hand operation, very clumsy, very difficult to aim. The arquebus was a great improvement. It could use this lever, which dropped it into the priming. I'm going to shoot at a pig carcass. It's the closest to human flesh and bone that we can get. And I want to see what sort of damage a weapon like this can do. So I simply open the pan and aim. Just look at that. It's really made a surgical wound through there. It's gone right through this thick pig skin. If you look round the back, look what it's doing on the exit wound. It's no wonder these things struck such terror into the natives. The wounds they delivered were really something that must have dismayed them. How could this happen? You can feel the bone here. It's chipped and sharp. It's a really unpleasant way to die.
But although the Spanish may have technologically superior weaponry, their guns are slow to reload. The tropical conditions makes their gunpowder damp and difficult to fire. The Indians, however, are fast and agile. As well as the bow, they use a weapon much more suited to close combat.
In hand-to-hand fighting, the Indians used a club like this. It's called a macana. It's made of palm wood, a very hard wood, so hard that it can even take a certain amount of edge, which helps it bite on the strike. Spanish art shows us these macana in action. The very fact that they had these means that the Indians had a culture of hand-to-hand fighting. A two-handed strike, it's got a tremendous clubbing power. Try cutting down at my head, for instance. Again, I can use the club to deflect it, and again, a two-handed swing coming into your jaw. Joints are especially vulnerable to blows with a club. I'm very agile, I haven't got armor on, so it gives me great mobility. I can get in close and use the end of it to thrust into his face, driving his nose into the back of his head. I could even take his sword off him. If you thrust at me here, using the club as a lever, I can wrench it, and then take your knee out, and then stove your head in. Even wearing a helmet is going to cause tremendous concussion or brain hemorrhage.